Welcome to Strength Foundation.
All right, welcome to Strength Foundation. If you're tackling the NSCA exam, you know Chapter 10 can feel, well, a little intimidating. But hey, don't sweat it. We're about to unpack everything you need to know from picking the right tests to getting the order just right. By the end of this, you're going to feel way more confident. Let's dive in.
Okay, let me ask you something. When you think about building a truly awesome training program for a client, what's the absolute first step? And I'll give you a hint. It's not picking out the coolest exercises. So what do you think? Where do we actually begin?
It all comes down to data. I mean, think about it. You wouldn't try to build a house without a blueprint, would you? Of course not. And that's exactly what assessment is. It's the blueprint for your client's entire fitness journey. Honestly, this is the one thing you can't skip. It's what separates the pros from the people just guessing.
Which brings us perfectly into our first big topic, the foundation. We're going to get into the why behind all this. Why do we even do assessments? Because let's be real, if you're not assessing, you're not training, you're guessing.
So look at this list. This is basically your roadmap for why assessment is so crucial. You're not just scribbling down numbers on a clipboard, right? You're actually building a complete profile of your client. You're finding their strengths, their weaknesses, and yeah, you're even spotting potential injury risks before they become a problem. This is how you build something that works, something that's safe, and something that actually gets your client excited. Okay, so when we talk about evaluations, there are two main flavors you've got to know for the exam. First, you have formative evaluation. The best way to think about this is like your GPS, giving you real-time updates. It's the constant feedback loop. You're checking their form, asking how they feel, and you're using that info to make little tweaks to the program as you go. Then you have summative evaluation. That's more like the final report card at the end of the semester. It happens at the end of a training cycle to see, okay, what did we actually accomplish here? All right, next up is a word that is guaranteed to be on your exam, validity. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. All it means is, does the test actually measure what you think it's measuring? It's like you wouldn't use a ruler to measure temperature, right? It's the wrong tool. And if you use an invalid fitness test, you could end up with completely wrong data about your client's abilities. So validity is just about picking the right tool for the job. And right alongside validity, you've got its partner, reliability. A reliable test is just a consistent test. Think about your bathroom scale. If you step on it, step off, and step back on again, you expect to see pretty much the same number, right? If it jumps around like crazy, you'd say the scale isn't reliable. It's the same thing with fitness tests. If you can't get consistent results under the same conditions, then you have no way of knowing if your client is actually making progress. And that's, well, it's a huge problem. Okay, moving on to section 2, the strategy. So we've established our tests need to be valid and reliable. Awesome. But how do we actually pick the right ones out of the hundreds of options out there? Let's get into it. You know, choosing a test isn't just a one-size-fits-all thing. It's more like putting together a puzzle. You got all these different pieces you need to consider. There's the client, obviously, their age, their training history, that's huge. But you also have to think about yourself. Like, are you actually skilled enough to administer this test correctly? Do you even have the right equipment? And then there's the environment, which is a really big one we need to talk more about. Yeah, let's zoom in on the environment for a sec, because this is a massive deal for the NSCA, especially when it comes to client safety. Things like the temperature, the humidity, even the air quality, they can totally mess up your test results. More importantly, they can actually put your client in a dangerous situation. And this is the kind of specific detail the NSCA loves to test you on, so commit this to memory. Once the temperature gets above 72 degrees Fahrenheit and the humidity is over 72%, you are officially in the danger zone for heat-related illness. That is a number you absolutely need to know for the exam. And it's not just heat and humidity. Air quality is another big one, especially if you're planning on doing any testing outside. You have to know how to read the Air Quality Index, the AQI. See that unhealthy category? Once that number ticks over 151, it is a hard stop. You either reschedule that aerobic test or you find a way to do it indoors. No exceptions. Client safety is everything. All right, on to section 3, the execution. So we've picked our tests, we've made sure the environment is safe. Now what? Now we actually have to run the tests. And there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. Listen, a good assessment session actually starts long before your client shows up. You've got to give them clear instructions beforehand. And this isn't just about being polite. It's about controlling the variables.
For instance, if your client slams a huge coffee right before a cardio test, their heart rate is going to be all over the place and your data will be useless. So giving them this heads up, that's what being a professional is all about. Now, this right here might be the single most important thing you tell your client. They need to know 100% that they are in the driver's seat. They can stop any test at any time for any reason. They don't even have to explain why. This isn't just about safety, it's about building trust and empowering your client. And while the client can stop for any reason, you need to know these non-negotiable stop signs. Seriously, burn this list into your brain. If you see any of these things happening, any chest pain, any shortness of breath, or what the book calls signs of poor perfusion, which basically means dizziness, nausea, clammy skin, you stop the test immediately. End of story. Your job is to keep them safe, period. Okay, section 4, the sequence. And I want you to lean in for this one because I can almost guarantee you will see questions about this on your exam. The order you do your tests in is not random. It's critically important. So here's the big why. The sequence isn't just arbitrary. It's a strategy to manage fatigue. Think about it. If you make your client do an exhausting cardio test first, what's going to happen to their blood pressure reading right after? Or their 1 rep max? They're going to be completely skewed, right? The whole point of the correct order is to make sure one test doesn't mess up the results of the next one. And here it is. This is the sequence you need to know, this inside out. We start with things that require no effort, resting tests like blood pressure and body comp. Then we move to stuff that's not tiring, like flexibility. From there, we ramp it up. Muscular strength, then muscular endurance. And we always finish with the hard stuff, the aerobic capacity tests. It's a simple progression from least tiring to most tiring. Get this order right.
All right, last section. Let's put all of these pieces together and look at the big picture.
This right here, this is your game plan. It's a professional, systematic way to make sure you've dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's. You're checking your equipment, you're confirming the sequence, you're preparing your client. Following a clear process like this is what separates the great trainers from the average ones. So if there's one thing you take away from this entire chapter, let it be this. Assessment isn't just a random list of exercises you do on day 1. It's a system. It's a thoughtful process that gives you the information you need to make every single decision that follows. It's how you can confidently build a program that is safe, effective, and actually designed for the unique person standing right in front of you. Look, at the end of the day, all this data, it gives you knowledge. But knowledge is just the starting line. Your real job, the art of coaching, is turning that knowledge into real-world results. So I'll leave you with this question. How are you going to take this information and use it to change someone's life? Because that, right there, is what being a great trainer is all about.